Hello, alongside the peripatetic Ryan Sir, I'm Don Helbig, and welcome to the Pick Six, the podcast by the Attractions Group, where we bring you the latest stories and attractions from the amusement industry.
And before we dive into this week's Pick Six, let me remind you can find us on all your favorite podcast apps, Apple, Google, Spotify. You know the drill. Make sure you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and share with a friend. Let them know. Spread the good word. Oh, yeah, and follow us on X at attractions_GRP.
Definitely do that.
Yeah, definitely do that. Don, where are we heading to first?
Story number one. Several theme and amusement parks across the UK are gearing up for their annual Christmas events. It's getting to be that time of the year, Ryan. Legoland Windsor, Drayton Manor, and Chessington World of Adventures will begin their festive celebrations on November 23rd. Alton Towers will follow with its Magical Days Out event starting on November 29th. Right, Paultons Park will launch its holiday season on December 6th.
Yeah, that's very cool. You know, the holidays are obviously pretty big over in Europe, but those parks do Christmas very, very well. That's the interpretation that I've always gotten.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, and it's hard to believe. I mean, we're, as we record here, we're approaching the mid-October, and we're just, 25, 30 days out from all these Christmas events now opening, and a lot of it's going to start over there in the UK.
Absolutely. Next up, heading to Medford, Oregon. So Medford, Oregon's Chuck E. Cheese opened its doors for a soft launch on Monday, offering a sneak peek of its newest features. The location is one of the first in the country to introduce an adventure zone, complete with a trampoline park and a ninja run obstacle course. Fans of the classic experience can still enjoy the arcade, prizes, and dance parties with Chuck E. Cheese himself. The official grand opening is scheduled for Thursday, October 17th. And I'm still bitter about them removing all the animatronics. Aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Did you go to Chuck E. Cheese a lot growing up?
Not a lot, but I would go there for like birthdays and stuff.
Yeah, that's where my family would take me for my birthday parties because, none of the kids in the neighborhood or from school wanted to come to any of my birthday parties. So that's where my family took me. So I could kind of be in a happy place there.
Well, I mean, I never got to have a birthday party there per se. I do remember being able to bring a friend. And that was a big deal. But let's talk about Chuck E. Cheese. I got a minute? Because
got all day.
So the last time I went to a Chuck E. Cheese was probably 15 years ago. Me and my friend brought her son to one. He was too young. He was terrified, but he was about 18 months old. But they had their animatronic show, and it was like fine. But when I was little, there were two shows in the same Chuck E. Cheese. There was like there's one that was like all the Chuck E. Cheese characters, and they were like from the waist up, and they were up in the air, and you could crawl around in these little mouse holes under the stage. And they had when Chucky would come out and be part of the show. So he would come out and wave the American flag, and they'd sing a song, and all the flags on the wall would go back and forth. And then the one in the front was like a blues band. It was like the Beagle Blues Band. They were all dogs, light blue dogs, from what I recall. And I remember thinking that was like the coolest thing ever. I always thought like animatronics were fascinating. But I'm sad that kids these days do not get to have that experience. And my understanding is that the reason for that is because of Five Nights at Freddy's. That movie was what got Chuck E. Cheese to pull the trigger on getting rid of the animatronics, which is something that they kind of wanted to do anyway.
And the pizza there is underrated. I remember it as being pretty good.
Do you hear the conspiracy theory about how they were like, they pieced together old pieces of pizza? Like, have you ever heard about, like, it's on YouTube and it's completely absurd. Some people think that when people leave behind like 2 or 3 slices of pizza, they take all that and they put them together and they give it to somebody else as a pizza because the pieces don't match together perfectly. But anybody that's like worked in the pizza business knows that like when you cut that pizza, it like shifts around. So it like if you cut it like an artist, if you like Picasso this thing, you can make it so it's a perfect circle. But if you cut it and you dig into it, as I assume they do, because they probably do it rather quickly, it makes all the pieces shift around so they look like they're just thrown together. But they were able to dispute it. Actually, there was like a health code thing. They went in and looked at it, but what they figured out was like, well, every pizza comes out of the oven, like the crust is a little different color. And it's like, if these are all from different pizzas, why isn't the crust like slightly different on each piece? But enough about my tinfoil hats. I
I
miss
just
you.
remember the pizza tasted good. That's all. That's my memories of it.
Well, I never thought about that. This is something I came across in, you know, the last year or so, but also on YouTube. In YouTube you can find old like Wendy's training videos and stuff. Like if you haven't watched that, then you should spend an afternoon because it's amazing and it's cringy. They have instruction videos for airing down the animatronics at night, and it's so creepy because they kill the compressor and all of them just kind of like drop their heads down in their arms and stuff. So it's really cool. But enough about this. Where are we heading next?
Well, a new exhibit is set to open this month at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, titled NASA's Earth Information Center. This 2,000 square foot exhibit offers visitors of all ages a chance to explore and learn about the changes happening on Earth. The centerpiece of the exhibit is a massive 32-foot long by 12-foot wide video wall, accompanied by interactive elements displaying NASA's data. These displays aim to present critical information about our planet's science in an engaging and easy to understand format for all visitors.
I have never been to a Smithsonian museum, and I'm dying to go.
I went a few years ago. My wife, daughter, and we decided to make a trip to King's Dominion. As part of that, since it was nearby, we spent a day in DC and made a stop there. Fascinating, interesting place. If you're in the area, you got to check it out.
Well, what's funny is my one visit to DC was about 2 years ago. I went to King's Dominion and we flew out of DC specifically so we could like see the city. We only had a few hours. All I got to do was I saw the Washington Monument. I saw the White House. The Capitol was kind of far away. I got to go in the Lincoln Memorial and we ate at the Cheesecake Factory. So I feel like I did the brief Washington DC round, but I love museums and stuff, so I really want to go out there and experience like the Air and Space Museum, the history museums, and all that stuff.
Yeah, when I was there, I was working for Kings Island Cedar Fair at the time, and there was a mandatory call that we all had to be on, all the PR social people. So I did that call sitting on a bench across the street from the White House.
Yeah, we were looking at the White House, and it was funny because like I think that this was when the Roe v. Wade, it wasn't when it was announced, it was when the opinion leaked. So we were kind of worried that there might be like violence or something, but there really wasn't. There weren't a lot of people there, but we were on one of the sides of the White House, and like the Secret Service for their part, they were like super polite and super nice, and they'd even like answer questions and stuff. And then all of a sudden they got super serious. They're like, all right, guys, everyone's got to go. Everyone go. Mm-hmm. And so they backed us up. We went to Lafayette Square, which is right adjacent to it. And they kicked us out of there too. So I don't know if like Joe Biden was leaving the White House or coming into the White House, or if there's some sort of threat or whatever, but it was kind of an interesting experience. But it's not like we were planning on taking a tour or anything. We didn't have enough time for that. But that's my one interesting story about Washington, D.C. But all right. Speaking of King's Dominion. So Six Flags has removed Dale Earnhardt theming from its Intimidator roller coasters, now known as Thunderstriker at Carowinds and the to-be-announced Project 305 at King's Dominion. Both roller coasters, previously called Intimidator at Carowinds in North Carolina and Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion in Doswell, Virginia, opened in 2010. Carowinds version stands 232 feet tall and hits speeds of up to 80 miles an hour, while King's Dominion's version tops out at 305 with speeds up to 90 miles per hour. Both coasters were lightly themed around NASCAR driver Dale Earnhardt, featuring a racing-related design elements such as a checkered flag pavement and themed souvenirs. At Carowinds, the coaster was renamed Thunderstriker in the spring of 2024. The new name came from a backstory connecting it to the universe of Thunder Road, the park's wooden coaster that closed in 2015. Despite the name change, the ride experience remains largely the same, with only the signage updated. At King's Dominion, Intimidator 305 is still awaiting its new identity. Throughout the 2024 season, the ride was temporarily referred to as Project 305, and on October 4th, the park hinted at a forthcoming change with a social media post. This project is nearing completion. 11/3 is your final day to ride 305 as you know it, accompanied by an image of a tombstone. Guests have until November 3rd to take their final rides on Project 305 before it's rebranded. The ride itself will not close, but it will adopt a new name and possibly a new theme. No reopening date for the 2025 season has been announced, but it will also feature the debut of the new roller coaster, Raptira, marking a true addition to the park alongside rebranding Project 305. I really like how they're doing this. They needed to. It was obviously, since they did both of them, it was a necessity at that time to remove the Dale Earnhardt theming, and they weren't ready to announce the new names. They gave it a placeholder name that's like clearly they didn't give it like a generic name. They gave it Project 305, which to me tells a little bit more of a story, like this is a work in progress.
I agree with you. I think the team there at Kings Dominion did a fantastic job, this whole summer with the Project 305 teasing. I like what they're doing here at the end, telling people it's your last chance to ride it as you know it. I actually didn't mind Project 305. You have the Washington football team. They were called before they were rebranded as the Commanders, so you had a short-term name there. In the National Hockey League, the Phoenix Coyotes moved to Utah. They don't have a name yet, so they're just going by the Utah Hockey Club. So kind of ties into me what they did here with Project 305. And you want to take your time, you want to do it right. And I really, you got to, tip your hat to the Kings Dominion team there because, I think they've done it the right way.
Yeah, I really think they have. I think it's cool. I know that there's some test paint on Intimidator 305, so it's definitely getting a paint job. It's probably getting a new name. There's not going to be a whole lot to this, but it's probably going to, tie into Raptira or something. If I recall, that area isn't far from Jungle Expedition, so maybe it'll be swallowed by it.
Now, all the things that they've done there at Kings Dominion over the past couple of years, I mean, they really have breathed new life into that park. Of all the, Legacy, Cedar Fair Park, now Six Flags parks, I don't think this park gets talked about enough. It's got, just a number of really, really good rides, other attractions. The food is really good there. The setting is nice. You come into the park on their International Street and things. It's, with the Eiffel Tower, you got the fountain. I think it's a beautiful park, and I would love to see more people, talking about Kings Dominion and kind of give it the attention that it deserves.
It never got any attention for decades, and now all of a sudden they're like, "Oh yeah, we have that park. We should do something," which is cool. I mean, I agree.
And what they've done looks great. The new area, everything. I mean, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, the Jungle Expedition thing was such a turning point for that park. It really was. All right, next up.
To Coney with Love, a collection of memories curated by Katie Mark and Rob Lowe, not the actor Rob Lowe, will be released by Britain Publishing on November 1st. This book captures the history and nostalgia of Cincinnati's beloved Coney Island, which first opened as an amusement park in 1886, later adding Sunlight Pool in 1925. Over the decades, Coney Island became a cherished entertainment spot for both locals and visitors alike. The closure of Coney Island and Sunlight Pool in December stirred deep emotions within the community, and it's going to be transformed into a new venue. The ideal for To Coney with Love was announced in March, inviting the public to submit their memories of Coney Island. Mark, a former group sales executive at the park, and Lowe, the son of Bob Lowe, a captain of the guards at Coney Island for 50 years, both have personal connections to the park, making this project a labor of love. Now, months later, the book features stories from grandparents, couples who met at Coney Island, and others reminiscing about favorite rides, first jobs. It celebrates the memories Cincinnatians hold dear of the historic park. So To Coney with Love will be available for purchase through online booksellers nationwide starting on November 1st. The first book signing will be held on November 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Montgomery Inn Boathouse, which is along the river in downtown Cincinnati. So for more details on the signings, just visit BritainPublishing.com.
Take my money. I will be purchasing this item.
I will be purchasing the book too. I'm going to try to get to that book signing.
I wouldn't mind doing that. I've actually never been to Montgomery Inn. Would you believe that,
Ryan? Let's bookmark that right now, and let's make it a point to be there for that book signing. on November 8th.
Opening up Apple Calendar, November 8th. What day of the week is that, Don?
I don't know. You tell me.
It is on a Friday. That could be fun. Park's closed.
Well, let's go. So November 8th, we're going to meet down there, and we will be at that book signing, and then we'll talk about it, as part of a Pick Six the following week.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, that sounds really fun. I do have the Goodbye Coney Island book. I actually keep on. I paged through it when I got it, but I fully intend to sit down and actually just read it. But I haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. I keep on thinking about that. But Coney Island history is fantastic, and being able to bookend it with this one where it goes that one ended in 1971. And it's very appropriate. It's the closing of Coney Island because they thought that was it. But this one will go through all the history, presumably all the way up until the destruction of Sunlight Pool most recently.
I was there that final day in 1971, September 6th. Remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Next up, in April, Kennywood announced the closure of its popular Steel Curtain roller coaster for the entire 2024 season, citing an extensive modification project to ensure the ride's long-term future. The park has provided an update reaffirming plans to open the ride in 2025. Throughout the season, our team has been hard at work toward the reopening of Steel Curtain in 2025, said General Manager Ricky Spicuzzo, friend of the show, by the way. When you visit the park, you'll notice we've begun the next phase of work on this project, including the addition of new columns to the structure. These and other enhancements will improve the coaster's reliability and longevity, preserving it for generations of riders. We're excited to continue progress over the coming months and can't wait to welcome riders back in 2025. Towering 220 feet, the Steel Curtain offers a 2-minute adrenaline rush, propelling riders through 4,000 feet of track in 9 versions at speeds up to 76 miles per hour. When it debuted in 2019, the coaster won the Golden Ticket Award for Best New Ride and set 3 records: Pennsylvania's tallest roller coaster, North American record for most inversions, and the world record for the tallest inversion at 197 feet. I have not gotten to ride this, but I have not heard a negative thing about it whatsoever. I heard it's
same thing here,
awesome.
Ryan. It closed just before I got there in 2023. Bought my Kennywood season pass and visited a couple times Labor Day weekend that year. The ride looks phenomenal. I could just imagine, how good and thrilling that ride experience would be. I've spoken to a number of people, Kennywood regulars who, just absolutely love that ride. So I'm looking forward to getting to Kennywood again next year and experiencing a ride on this attraction. It just looks amazing. And I think, once it reopens, it's going to go on that list of a can't miss attraction.
I agree. I will specifically visit Kennywood to ride this once it reopens and it's reliable.
Located right next to the racer.
Right. Let's move on to the. I don't like the Steelers theme though. I just want to put that out there.
That was tough for me to take a picture in front of that a couple years ago. Being a lifelong Bengals fan, and then how the Steelers just, if it hadn't been for the Steelers, the Bengals might have even got to a Super Bowl or 2 in the 70s, but they just happened to play in the same division. Not as many teams made the playoffs back then, but tough to get a picture in front of it. But colors look great. The black and the gold. That's Pittsburgh, black and gold, everything, and it looks great.
Yeah, I'm sure it looks wonderful. But anyway, let's move on to the listener question. First one, Walter R. from Youngstown, Ohio. He said, I grew up going to Idora Park. Rides on the Wildcat were the best. Any chances you guys could do an episode on this now gone but forgotten park? I miss it. Do you know much about this park, Don?
It was on my first roller coaster trip that I went on and included Jogga Lake and Kennywood, 1982.
Oh.
It was Labor Day weekend. Wildcat, oh my gosh. You talk about a roller coaster. You knew you rode a roller coaster when you were on that. That thing was wicked good.
It was wicked good.
Wicked good. I mean, it was aggressive. It was intense. Probably the most intense roller coaster that up to that point I'd ever been on. Especially if you sat near the back. I mean, you knew you'd been on a ride, and you wanted to get back off and get back on it again too. I mean, it was that good. So yeah, I remember Idora Park. didn't get to go there as often as I would have wanted. I only got back there a couple of other times after that. So yeah, I'd love to do an episode on Idora Park, Ryan. I think maybe we can even find a couple of people that grew up with it or worked there or something to kind of be a guest on the show to talk about it.
Yeah, I would love to have context. Obviously, this is a park that closed a year after I was born, so I never got to attend it.
And we're talking 40 years since I'd been there, so I remember it and stuff, but I'd like to have someone that was even closer to the situation than me.
Yeah, I'm pulling up now. I mean, I'm learning as we go, obviously, but check this out. This coaster, the Jackrabbit, opened in 1914. It would be 110 years old now if it was still around, but it closed with the park.
Yeah. So if you're out there and you're listening and you have memories of Idora Park, definitely leave them in the comments for us. If you know someone that worked at Idora Park that you think would make a great guest, put us in contact with them, because I think this would be a great story. I mean, it had a great history. People in Youngstown, love that park. You don't see, there's not as many parks like that out there, today. And like I said, my memories of it are, fantastic. You had great rides on the Wildcat. I think about that ride a lot, and when somebody says, what's the most intense roller coaster you've ever been on, I think that's still, it's right up there. If it's not the most intense, it's up there.
Yeah. Next listener question, Tony B from Cleveland, Ohio. He said, the Blue Streak at Cedar Point celebrated its 60th anniversary this year. I was highly disappointed that Cedar Point did little to recognize the anniversary. Don, as a former PR guy, if you were at Cedar Point instead of Tony Clark, would you have done more than merely give it a mention?
Well, I think it would have been a great opportunity. One of the things that I really liked doing during my years of doing PR at Kings Island was, leveraging those anniversaries and getting those stories out there, retelling the stories of those rides. The media always, would run those stories. It would rekindle memories for just a lot of people, and people would be amazed that, not even thinking that it's 60 years old, but it is. Mm-hmm. So I would have tried to do a little bit more with it. I think there were some storytelling opportunities there with it, especially this summer when you had, Top Thrill 2 unfortunately went down. So, you'd be looking for other things to talk about. So, it was there on a silver platter to do more things with it. I'm not there. I don't know what else, they had going on that they had to, to get out there and talk about. But as a PR person, I was more of a storyteller than a messenger. So things like this would have been right up my alley to get out there and use to get Cedar Point's name out there, not just in the Sandusky area, Cleveland area, Toledo area. But I think, this ride has enough history and nostalgia, tradition in that, it certainly could have gone a little bit further than just that local area, the region, and been a way to keep Cedar Point's name out there and more in a positive light than every story just being is Top Thrill 2 going to open and all the negativity that was surrounding that this summer. So I definitely would have tried to do it that way, because again, as a PR person, I was more of a storyteller than a messenger.
Do you think, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, but with their horrible bureaucracy with the brand teams and all that, you kind of alluded to this, and I was kind of thinking the same thing. Do you think that since that wasn't on the list for this year, that Tony couldn't do it, that he just did not have the agility to flex to that?
I don't know how much has to run up, the flagpole with every little thing that you're doing. I would think if you're a PR person, you go to the people that you report to and you say, hey, I got a positive story here for Cedar Point. We can do this on Blue Streak. I don't know why that would get denied, because I think it would be a good story, but you don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's been, a couple years now, almost, since I was there. And,
yeah,
there's been a lot of changes in how they have to, funnel things and get approvals for things. And when I was doing it, I mean, if you had a story, you could pretty much do it. I mean, there wasn't any, there weren't any restrictions on me in terms of what I could pitch and get the media to come out to do. So I was there probably in the glory days of, being a PR person, like, some of the people that you and I know that were there in the 70s and 80s, where you could just go around the park and find, every day that you wanted to find a story to get the name of the park out there, you could do it. So I don't know, what's changed in that landscape. I'm not there. I don't know. I just know if I was there and I was the PR person for Cedar Point, it's certainly something that I would have tried to leverage and get the buy-in. You have to have those collaborative discussions. I mean, everybody's got to be on the same page. Let's make no mistake about that. You can't go rogue. You got to be on the same page. But I would have tried to share why this would be, a good story to tell, why it would be important to tell, and how it would benefit Cedar Point in getting the name out there in a positive fashion.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like there's more to it because Tony gets it when it comes to PR. I could see some people in that company thinking that's a non-story and that it wouldn't fly and that it's not important and nobody cares and, yada, yada, yada. We've heard this before for that sort of thing. To Tony's credit, I think he would see the value in it.
Oh yeah, I do too. I mean, I think, but I know that you're also in a situation where you don't have as deep a team as they maybe one time had there at Cedar Point. There was 3 or 4 PR people one time on staff there. And that wasn't too long ago. And when you're a one-man band with it, and you're tied up with all this stuff going on with Top Thrill 2, and they had different events, that were coming up that, he needed to be talking about and get those stories out there too. So, I mean, there's a lot going on. So I'm just saying if I was there, I certainly would have tried to do it. But who knows?
Yeah, we don't know the reason. It's almost certainly not that Tony didn't realize it was 60 or didn't think that stories would pick up about it or that people wouldn't care. It's none of those. It's something else, most certainly to Tony.
No, Tony, I a lot of respect for Tony Clark. He's loves the industry, passionate about it. Knows Cedar Point well. I think he's terrific on camera. He talks about Cedar Point with the media and that. So yeah, but I mean, there's just a lot of stuff going on there this summer. I mean, that had to be a hard year for not only Tony, but everybody that worked there this year because everything was revolving around Top Thrill 2 early in the year, and then when that didn't happen, you have to kind of try to shift gears and do some other things. But it wasn't a lost year for them. They had so many really good different events that they did this year, and now they're in their Halloween season. I think they do that very well. I don't think that gets the credit for being as good of an event as it is. It's to me it's it's definitely a top 10 in the entire industry. They do it very well. Perfect blend of the family fun stuff during the day, the scary haunt stuff at night. Then you blend that in with the thrill rides that they have there during the day. They've got a great collection, and they get lost in the shuffle because of how good the roller coasters are, but they've got a great collection of flat rides. So there's a lot to like about everything Cedar Point does, and they always have something, it seems, going on all the time there.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. What do you think is worse? Do you think that Top Thrill 2, from a PR standpoint, like would you rather deal with Top Thrill 2 this year or Son of Beast the year that they closed it down? Because they're both awful, but I almost think Top Thrill 2 is worse because at least you can say, like, you were able to say no decision's been made and like it was pretty evident that it wasn't going to open next week. Well, with Top Thrill 2, he said it's not going to be an all summer thing. And again, I don't think he lied. I think that was the information they had at the time.
I mean, there was no way to know, especially when you have a prototype ride. You don't know. You can only go with the information that, we think we're going to have a solve here for it. There's two different things though. Son of Beast was cleared to operate. I mean, it got inspected by the state. There was no reason not to run it other than management didn't want to run it. They didn't feel comfortable with it. So there was two different, it wasn't because of an issue with the ride. There weren't any mechanical issues or, issues with the track, nothing like that. It was more of it was an internal decision not to run it. So I think you're looking at two different things there, Ryan, in terms of what you would have to deal with. It was unforeseen, with Top Thrill 2, nothing they could do about it. They would run it if they could.
I don't disagree.
I think I would rather have dealt with, especially because of the hype being new this year. Now, if it had been around for 4 or 5 years, that's a little different too. Son of Beast was, had operated since 2000 when it shut down in 2009. So it had a little bit of a run. But this was, 8 days into its operation, when it went
Yeah.
down, and that was your whole off-season campaign. And going into the season was, Top Thrill 2, new for 2024 at Cedar Point. So I think that would be a lot tougher situation to deal with than what I had to do with Son of Beast.
I agree, but and I think you're thinking of it from a business standpoint in terms of you built your campaign around this, and then a week later it blows up. But it doesn't blow up in your face. That's a little extreme. But a week later, the thing that everyone was looking forward to ended up not being a thing for the rest of the season. And I understand that, but for me, I think the thing that would be much harder is that for all we know, it's June 15th. It could open on the 16th. So
Yeah, nobody knew.
The news was right to call every single day and ask what the update is, because as far as all of us were concerned, and probably the park itself, it's any day now,
Yeah, so nobody knew. So that's a tough position to be in. If you're the communications person there, that you're going to get those inquiries all the time, and all you can say is, we don't have any additional information. But the media is going to do its job, and you have to respect that they know that the public's interested, so they're going to keep calling you to see if there's any update, even though you've told them there's no update. We'll let you know when there's going to be an update. So it's just, what every day you get up in the morning and you head to the park, that's going to be what you're going to have that day. If you're out in the park walking around, you're going to have guests coming up asking you about it. You're going to have associates in the park. They want to know, they're as curious as anyone else what's going on with the ride. So, that's your world that you lived in this summer. Was everybody asking you about Top Thrill 2?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I understand where they're coming. Like, so they had Coaster Mania there sometime in mid-June, and I was kind of under the assumption that the big surprise was going to be at reopen for that. That I had a hunch, and I was completely wrong. It didn't, and the thing that kind of stunk, and I know the reasoning. I understand that there's timelines, and sometimes it's too far gone, but all of their marketing, their T-shirt, their invitation, everything, all had Top Thrill 2 on it. And then you have this event, and the star of the show doesn't show up. So I completely understand the frustration associated with that. Now, with that being said, somebody in the comments is going to bring up there was an enthusiast that kind of erupted at Tony. Tony was a jerk too, by the way. He was very condescending, but this guy was completely out of line. But you got to put yourselves in the shoes of some other people. If people drive from Michigan, from Chicago, St. Louis, and stuff like that, and the star of the show is not there, people are inherently going to be upset about it. And how you handle that is really kind of the mark of what's going on. Because imagine going to Disney World and it's like, Magic Kingdom's closed today, sorry, we don't really have a timetable for it reopening. It's like, well, that's why I came. So yeah, so
you're dealing with prototype ride, though. It's tough, and you and I anticipated there would be some issues with it. I remember talking about it in January, February, March before it opened. I remember you and I talking about maybe it'd be best to wait until Memorial Day or something to open and just keep cycling it and cycling it and cycling until you knew for sure that it was going to work. Mm-hmm. But everything appeared to be ready to go. There was a lot of excitement about it. Everybody that I've spoken to that experienced the ride or more on it absolutely loved it. So hopefully it's, everything gets resolved and it's open and is reliable in 2025. And if it is, with the other things they're doing there with Siren's Curse and special events and things that they have going on, 2025 would definitely be a year to visit Cedar Point.
Assuming Top Thrill 2 works properly, let's say that it goes as flawlessly as it's going to for, let's call it a first-year coaster, okay, for these purposes. It goes as well as it can. Siren's Curse, let's say that goes as well as it can. They got all their events, their current lineup. If we're not in a recession next year, because you always have to throw that caveat in, next year will be bonkers at Cedar Point with how busy they'll be and how much is going on. And it's going to be a really exciting year. I'm looking forward to going there. You know, I'm not the biggest Cedar Point fan simply because that's not always what I'm looking for in parks. I like experiences over coasters. That's why I like the Florida parks primarily. But next year, between the 1-2 punch of those two, at least new to me rides, on top of, you know, the summer nights. They didn't do summer nights, but they did the activities from summer nights on the beach. I attended that. That was awesome. Frontier Fest. They often do that one. We don't know if it's coming back next year or not, but just so much going on. But yeah, that park.
Its park is also a place that, because of how good the roller coasters are, it gets lost in the shuffle. How good, you know, the flat ride lineup is, how good their train ride is. The culinary experience has really been elevated in recent years. You can, if you're a foodie fan, I mean, you could spend a day there just trying the different foods and, you know, leave the park at night feeling that you had a great day. So, I mean, there's just so much to like about Cedar Point, you know, from the way I enjoy parks. You know, I love roller coasters, but I like the whole experience. I do like the flat rides. I like watching shows. I like, you know, attending special events. I've become a foodie fan, you know, of parks. So there's a lot to like about Cedar Point. So for me, you know, if the roller coasters weren't there, I would still make it a point to go to Cedar Point every year just because there's still a lot to see and do.
Oh, yeah. You talked about the food. My understanding is this is gone now, but the turkey at the pavilion, I was there for 3 days and I got it 4 times.
Chicken tenders there were off the charts good.
I've heard that as well. But you know what? We got asked a question about Blue Streak and completely went off the rails, as we have a tendency to do. But let's.
It would not be the pick 6 if we did not, Ryan.
It would not be us if we did not mess up the listener questions. Hey, I'm Ryan Sir, along with Don Helbig. Stick around next week. We got more exciting episodes of the Attractions Group podcast.